Hello, good people. Welcome to the final video of this topic about the average value of a function. We're going to do two quick examples to kind of remind ourselves of what the formula tells us to do. We're actually going to do number 3 here, which is asking us, if you read the directions, it's asking us to find the average value of the function on that given interval. So if I look at this function, I have square root of x, but I want the average value out of all the function values between 0 and 6, between x equals 0 and x equals 16. So the formula says to find the average value, we take 1 over 16 minus 0 times the integral from 0 to 16 of the square root of x dx. Now let's go back and read the directions. Can we use our calculator? It doesn't really say. So let's do this without a calculator, and then let's check it with a calculator. So really quickly, let's see. This would be 1/16. The antiderivative of square root of x. Now remember, square root of x is really x to the 1/2. So the antiderivative of that would be x to the 3/2 divided by 3/2, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2/3. And we're going to evaluate this from 0 to 16. So that's going to give us 1/16 times. If I substitute the 16 here, I'll get this expression. Minus, if I substitute the 0, well, that's going to go away because 0 times anything is 0. So really all I have left is, I'm going to pull out this 2 and the 3, which is going to become 1/24th, by the way. But so I pull that out, and then I'm going to multiply it times 16 to the 3/2. Now, I just said this becomes 1/24th because I can reduce the fraction. And then here, remember what the fractional exponent says. The denominator tells me the root. So I'm taking the square root of 16, which is 4. Oh, maybe I shouldn't reduce it. Oh, well. Square root of 16 is 4, and then 4 to the third power is 4 times 4 times 4, and I believe that's 64. 4 times 4 times 4. And so therefore, my final answer is 64/24. But I believe I can divide by 4. Is that right? 4. And then I can divide by 2. I guess I could divide it by 8. That was kind of silly, Mr. Barrientos. Divide by 8, and I get 8/3. So in the interval between 0 and 16, the average value is 8/3. Now, is that correct? Well, let's check it on the calculator real quick. Go over here. Let's clear this stuff out. So we're going to do a fraction and say 1/16 times the integral, math 9, from 0 to 16 of the function square root of x dx. And if I press my answer, bam, that's what I get. What did we say it was? 8/3. Is that 8/3? 8 divided by 3? Oh, it is that answer. So again, once you write the setup, if you're in a calculator active section of the exam, then you can just pop it into your calculator and be done with it. If you're not on a calculator active, if it's do it without a calculator, well, here's the work. We're just doing the first part of the fundamental theorem of calculus, which says if you can find an antiderivative, evaluate that antiderivative at the top limit and the bottom limit, subtract those, and you should have your integral answer. And that's number 3. I'm going to go over to, how about number 6? So here, find the x value where the function is equivalent to the average value on that interval. Find the x value where the function is equivalent to the average value on that interval. Okay, so first of all, I need to know what is the average value on that interval. Okay, so let's see. I can set up my formula, 1 over 3 minus 0 times the integral from 0 to 3 of negative x squared over 2 dx. Just to make it a little bit nicer, if I'm doing this by hand without a calculator, I'm going to take that negative outside of the integral. I'm also going to take the 2 in the denominator outside, even though there's already a 3 here. When I pull that 2 out, I'm going to multiply it, and I'm going to get negative 1/6 times the integral from 0 to 3 of x squared. That might make it easier to take the antiderivative. The antiderivative is x to the third over 3 times the negative 1/6 that's in the front, and I'm going to evaluate that from 0 to 3, which really means I'm just going to plug in the 3, because when I substitute the 0 to do the second part of the fundamental theorem, that becomes 0. So then this is really negative 1/18, because I'm going to multiply those two, times 3 to the third. And when I do this, that's going to be negative 27/18, which if you divide by 9 will give you negative 3/2. Now, this is the average value of f on that interval. And some students sometimes get confused because they look at the answer and they're saying, well, that's not in between 0 and 3. You're right, because this is the function value. This is the y value. Now, the question is asking us, what is the x value where the average value occurs? So I come back over here and I say, okay, well, now that I know this is my y value, then let's figure out the x coordinate where that occurs. So I'm going to set that equal to my function, and I'm going to solve for x. If I multiply both sides by 2, I'm going to get negative 3 equals negative x squared. If I divide both sides by a negative, I'm going to get negative 1. I'll get 3 equals x squared, and then I can take the square root. Now, technically, I get a positive and a negative answer. However, our interval is only in the positive side, so this is the x value that we're looking for. So at this x value, there is the average value of the function. And we are done with this topic. Again, the formula is important. You'll see average value questions come in multiple choice form or in free response form. And also, we're going to continue to practice the difference between finding the average rate of a function and the average value of a function. When you're looking for the average value of something and they give you the equation of that something, we have to use this formula that we just talked about today.